There is a year I keep coming back to, and I have been coming back to it for a long time. I do not think there is another 12 months in the history of rock music
We always take my car 'cause it's never been beat, and
where so many songs arrived already fully formed, like they had always existed somewhere, and we had just been waiting for someone to find them and play them. These are the ones that turned 62 this year, and I need to tell you some things about them that you may not know. Starting with number 10. Number 10, Not Fade Away, The Rolling Stones.
I'm gonna love you night and day.
I remember the first time I really understood what the Rolling Stones were doing in 1964.
Oh, you know just how I feel.
Not the bad boys angle everybody talks about. The deeper thing. The way you realize these 5 guys from London were completely obsessively in love with American music that most Americans had already stopped paying attention to.
Now fade away. Now fade away.
They were going to crate shops in Soho and buying records that nobody at home was playing on the radio. And one of those records was a Buddy Holly B-side from 1957, Not Fade Away, written by Buddy Holly and Norman Petty, recorded by Holly and the Crickets.
When you know my love and I'll fade away.
Holly's original already had a Bo Diddley beat buried in it. This cha-cha-like rhythm rooted in West African tradition that Bo Diddley had made his signature. Holly played it lightly. It sat underneath everything, almost shy.
You're gonna give your love to me.
The Rolling Stones decided to put it up front. Keith Richards' guitar pushed the beat to the front of the room. Brian Jones added harmonica, and Mick Jagger, who was still figuring out what his voice was going to be, started sounding for the first time like Mick.
Hey!
Bill Wyman said it plainly. We brought the rhythm up and emphasized it. Holly played it lightly. We just got into it more and put the Bo Diddley beat up front.
Now fade away. Now fade away.
And then something happened that nobody planned. A song from 1957 started sounding like 1964. Like the future, actually. Their manager Andrew Oldham recognized what was happening, saying, this was the beginning of them as songwriters. Even though they had not written a single note of it, which is an extraordinary thing to say about a cover record, but he was right. The Stones had not written it. They had remade it, and in the remaking they found themselves. The record reached number 3 in the UK in February 1964, their first top 10. It also became the first single they released in the United States, climbing to number 48 in May 1964.
Oh, you know just how I feel.
Some songs mean what they say, and some songs predict what they become. And Not Fade Away, sung by the longest-running act in rock history, 60-plus years and still performing. Maybe did both at once.
Now fade away. Now fade away.
There is one more thing I want you to carry through this list with you. There is a song coming up, not far from here, where the story behind it is stranger and more personal and more explosive than anything I am going to tell you today. It involves a razor blade, a cheap amplifier,
When you know my love and I'll fade away.
and a moment of absolute rage that accidentally invented something. We will get there. Keep that in the back of your mind. Number 9 is a song that had already been a song once before. The first time, nobody cared. Then the world changed. Wait until I tell you what happened the second time.
You're gonna give your love to me.
Number 9, Do-Wah Diddy Diddy, Manfred Mann. Okay, I want to tell you something about this song and I need you to hear me out. Because Do-Wah Diddy Diddy does not feel, in 2026, like a revolutionary moment in rock history. It feels like the kind of song that plays on a jukebox in a diner set in 1964.
Every single day singing.
And that casual familiarity is exactly what hides the story. Do-Wah Diddy Diddy was written by Jeff Barry and Ellie Greenwich, two of the most important songwriting partners of the 1960s, between them responsible for some of the best pop records of the decade. And in 1963, a girl group called The Exciters recorded it.
We kissed a little more. Whoa.
And it went essentially nowhere. The song existed, it had a life, and then that life ended. And here is the part I did not know until I started digging, and I wish I had known sooner. A British band recorded it in 1964. And I want to stop and point something out that most people miss. The band was named after its keyboard player. The man singing the voice you actually hear on the record is named Paul Jones.
Mine. She's mine. I'm hers. She's mine. Wedding bells are going.
So every time someone says they love that Manfred Mann song, they are praising a keyboard player for a vocal performance that a completely different human being gave. Which is its own story and also the most British thing I have ever heard.
We're so happy and that's how we're gonna stay singing.
Manfred Mann's version of Doo-Wah Diddy Diddy went to #1 in the United Kingdom. Then it went to #1 in the United States, in the summer of 1964, in the middle of the British invasion.
She was walking next to me singing.
In the year the Beatles had a grip on everything that felt almost supernatural, a song that had already existed and failed became the biggest song in 2 countries simultaneously. And here is what I love about that. The song was not the problem the first time it was recorded.
Looked fine and I nearly lost my mind before I knew it.
The timing was the problem. The world was not ready for it in 1963. And then the world changed. Violently, completely, irreversibly, and suddenly the song fit into the new world like it had been made for it. Which maybe it had. Some things are just waiting for the right moment to arrive.
Yes, I did, and so I told her all the things.
And I know you have had a version of this experience. The specific details are different, the feeling is not. Number 8 is the band that had already shown up on this list. They came back. They came back louder. They came back with more distortion than they started with. And that is saying something.
Mine. She's mine. I'm hers. She's mine. Wedding bells are going.
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story. Number 8. All Day and All of the Night. The Kinks. I have a theory about great bands in the year. They figure out who they are. There is a specific recklessness that comes with it. They are not being careful. They are not being polished. They are loose and dangerous and more right than they know, in the way that only people who do not yet understand how good they are can be. The Kinks in 1964 were that. All Day and All of the Night arrived in October 1964, about 2 months after You Really Got Me had torn a hole in the charts and established the Kinks as something the world had not quite heard before. And the question everybody was asking was the same one you always ask a band that comes out of nowhere with something that big. Was that the thing? Was that the one? Or can they do it again? They did it again. They did it louder. Dave Davies, who had already created the distorted guitar tone on You Really Got Me by slashing his amplifier with a razor blade, and I need you to remember that detail because we are almost to the part of this list where that story gets its full telling, came back with even more distortion on All Day and All of the Night. He pushed further, found more aggression in the sound, more velocity. The song hits harder and faster than the one that made them famous. And I know what you are thinking right now, because I thought it too. How do you follow a song that invented something? You do not try to top it, you extend it. You take the same raw material, the power chords, the distortion, the rhythm that feels like it is trying to climb out of the speakers, and you take it further than you took it the first time. All Day and All of the Night reached number 2 in the UK and number 7 in the United States. Almost as big as You Really Got Me, and almost completely in its shadow, which is one of the unfair things that happens when a band moves fast. But I want to say something directly to you. The song at number 1 on this list, the one I have been hinting at, the razor blade, the rage, the amplifier cone. That story is 2 entries away now. And All Day and All of the Night is what happened after that story found its audience and doubled down. It is all the same thread, all connected. We are almost there. Sometimes a band's second statement is more revealing than the first, because the first one might have been an accident. The second one says, no, we knew exactly what we were doing. Number 7 is the American answer to the British invasion. It was recorded on the day they cut their father loose, and it went to number 1 on the 4th of July, which is perfect. Number 7, I Get Around, the Beach Boys.
Driving up and down the same old strip, I gotta find a new place where the kids...
Something I love, genuinely love, about 1964 is that America did not roll over for the British invasion. There is a version of this story people tell sometimes.
We always take my car, 'cause it's never been beat, and
where the Beatles arrived, and all the American acts just stepped back and let it happen. And that is not entirely true. There were American bands who heard what was coming and said, okay, we hear you, now hear us. I Get Around was the Beach Boys' first number 1 hit in the United States. Released in May 1964, a few months after the Beatles appeared on Ed Sullivan and turned the world upside down, it topped the Billboard Hot 100 on July 4th, 1964. Becoming the Beach Boys' first chart-topping U.S. hit, and the beginning of an unofficial rivalry between Brian Wilson and the Beatles, Independence Day, which is either the most American coincidence in music history or just exactly right. I have decided it is just exactly right. It was the first song the Beach Boys recorded after the Beatles arrived in the United States. Brian Wilson heard what was happening and responded by making something more complex and ambitious than anything he had made before. The song has a jarring a cappella intro, fuzz guitar, off-kilter organ, stop-start rhythms. Technically, it was years ahead of where most people thought the Beach Boys were. And here is what I did not know until I started researching this list. The recording sessions for I Get Around began on April 2nd, 1964. And on that same day, the Beach Boys fired their manager, Murray Wilson, who was the father of Brian, Dennis, and Carl. Brian had started rigging a fake mixing board for his father to sit at during sessions, just to give him something to do so he would stay out of the actual recording. On April 2nd, there was a confrontation between Brian and Murray, and that was the end of Murray Wilson's time managing the band. The song that came out of that session, the one recorded on the day they cut their father loose, is a joyful, almost recklessly exuberant hymn to freedom and movement. I Gotta Find a New Place Where the Kids Are Hip, written the day they fired their dad. You can make of that what you will. I find it extraordinary. Some songs carry the weight of the moment they were made in, and some songs sound like pure escape from that same weight. I Get Around is both at the same time, and I think that is exactly why it endures. Number 6 is the Rolling Stones again, and this time it is the song that made them. Their first American top 10, their Ed Sullivan debut, and the woman whose voice they borrowed, who did not forgive them for decades.
We always take my car, 'cause it's never been beat, and we...
Number 6, Time Is on My Side, the Rolling Stones.
It's on my side. Yes, it is.
Here is what I love most about music history. The further back you go, the more complicated the credit gets. The story of Time Is on My Side is technically a Rolling Stone story.
Yes, it is. Listen,
But the person this story actually belongs to is someone named Irma Thomas. And I am going to tell you her side of it first.
one day, you're gonna be coming back walking through that same.
Time Is on My Side was written by a man named Jerry Ragavoy, originally recorded by jazz trombonist Kai Winding and his orchestra in 1963, with session vocalists including Cissy Houston and Dion and Dee Dee Warwick singing the chorus over Winding's trombone melody. It barely made a ripple. Then, in April 1964, Irma Thomas, the soul queen of New Orleans, recorded her own version. A session singer named Jimmy Norman wrote additional lyrics as they recorded. Thomas brought emotional intensity, a bluesy edge, and a bold rejection of a wayward lover to the song.
Keep it out, folks. Go!
Her version is extraordinary, and it was released as a B-side. The Rolling Stones found it the way they found most of their early material, crate digging in Soho record shops that stocked imported American music. They heard Irma Thomas's version and recorded their own take within days, replacing horns with organ and guitars, with Mick Jagger imitating Thomas's phrasing and ad-libs directly. Their version became their first American top 10 hit, and Irma Thomas watched this happen and refused to perform her own song for multiple decades. Their cover also marked one of the band's earliest high-profile television appearances when they performed it on their debut on The Ed Sullivan Show.
It's on my side. Yes, it is.
Sullivan, reportedly appalled by their appearance and their hair, publicly declared that they would never be invited back, only to invite them back several more times as their popularity soared. Keith Richards later said something I find genuinely fascinating.
Yes, it is.
In America, we were basically known for heavy, slowish ballads. Time Is on My Side, Tell Me, Heart of Stone, that was what we were known for. Strangely enough, that was our thing. Every single was a slow song. Who would believe it?
The kind that you name.
And then, in May of 2024, 60 years after the Stones recorded the song, Mick Jagger brought Irma Thomas on stage at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival to perform it together for the first time. The first time the Stones had played it live since 1998, time was on her side, the whole time. Number 5 is the American who refused to be swept aside, a man with a voice like no one before or since. The song he wrote in an afternoon about a woman who was already on her way out the door. Number 5, Oh, Pretty Woman, Roy Orbison.
Mercy.
I want to talk for a second about what it meant to be Roy Orbison in 1964. Because from where we stand now, it is easy to miss this. The British invasion was dismantling everything.
With me, 'cause I need.
American pop acts were dropping off the charts. The world had changed, rapidly and completely. And there was Roy Orbison, this slight, quiet man from Texas who wore dark glasses and stood absolutely still on stage and sang with a voice that did not sound like it belonged to this earth. Oh, Pretty Woman was released on August 15, 1964. It went to number 1 internationally, including at the top of the Billboard Hot 100. It was the second and final American number 1 for Orbison, and the opening guitar riff is one of the most instantly recognizable sounds in the history of rock music.
I don't believe you, you're not the truth.
You hear those first 4 notes and something happens to you physically. It is not voluntary. Here is how it was written. Roy Orbison was at home working with his songwriting partner Bill Dees one day when his wife Claudette said she was going into town to do some shopping. Orbison asked if she needed any money, and Dees, without looking up, said, "A pretty woman never needs any money."
Pretty woman, don't walk away.
Orbison started playing right then. By the time Claudette came back from shopping, they had the song. They wrote it on a Friday. The following Friday, they recorded it. The Friday after that, it was out. The fastest turnaround Dees said he had ever seen. The growl in the middle, that sound Orbison makes that feels like it comes from somewhere below language, was completely improvised. Nobody told him to do it.
Pretty woman, the kind of like me, pretty woman.
It happened and they kept it, because no one had the nerve to suggest cutting it. And here is the part of this story that has stayed with me. Roy Orbison and Claudette divorced in November 1964, while he was on tour, touring the song she had inspired. They reconciled 10 months later. There is a whole movie in that single year. Some records sound like they came from somewhere more honest than the world usually allows. Roy Orbison, standing completely still on a stage, singing a song his wife inspired on the way to the grocery store. That is what great music looks like sometimes. Completely ordinary, and completely extraordinary at the same time. Number 4 is the song where the Beatles decided to break physics. The first deliberate use of feedback on a rock record, and the story of how they convinced their label it was an accident.
My way, pretty woman, say you'll stay.
Number 4, I Feel Fine. The Beatles Beatles, I have always loved the moments in the Beatles story where you can see them discovering something in real time, not planning it, not engineering it, just finding something in the room and picking it up and going, wait, what is this? Can we use this? The story of I Feel Fine is one of those moments. October 1964. The Beatles are at EMI Studios. John Lennon is in the room with his guitar, a semi-acoustic Gibson J160E with a pickup, and during a playback, he leans it against Paul McCartney's bass amplifier, and the guitar begins to howl. McCartney described what happened. The guitar went, and everyone in the room stopped. What's that, Voodoo? No, it's feedback. Wow, it's a great sound. Can we have that on the record? That sound, 2 seconds of deliberately induced electric howl at the very start of I Feel Fine, is recognized as the first intentional use of feedback on a pop record. The opening was created by Paul McCartney plucking a sustained A note on his bass, which vibrated back through John Lennon's Vox amplifier to create the feedback. And here is the part I love the most. Parlophone. The Beatles label had strict rules about including what they considered imperfections in recordings. So Lennon and the band told the label it was an accident, that it had occurred during recording and they had simply kept it. Which was not true. They knew exactly what it was. They used it exactly as they intended. They just needed the label to believe it was unavoidable. In one of his last interviews, Lennon said, "I defy anybody to find a record, unless it's some old blues record in 1922 that uses feedback that way." The feedback at the start of I Feel Fine is 2 seconds long, and those 2 seconds point directly toward Tomorrow Never Knows, toward Are You Experienced, toward every record where distortion and electronic noise became the texture of the music rather than an error to be corrected. 2 seconds that opened a door that could never be shut again. We are almost at the razor blade. We are almost at the thing I have been talking about since number 10. Almost there. Number 3 is a song that was too long for radio, too dark for pop. The recording cost £34. They did it in one take, and then it knocked the Beatles off the top of the charts. Number 3, The House of the Rising Sun, The Animals. There is a specific kind of song that works as a closing number. You know the one. The set has been great. The crowd is warm. And then the band plays the last song and the energy in the room goes somewhere else. The Animals found that song on tour with Chuck Berry in early 1964, and then they decided they needed to record it immediately. Every other band on that Chuck Berry tour, according to Animals drummer John Steele, was trying to out-rock Chuck Berry, which was impossible. The Animals went a different direction, pulling out The House of the Rising Sun, an ancient American folk ballad that Eric Burdon had first heard sung by a Northumbrian folk singer named Johnny Handel in a club in Newcastle. They slowed it down. They went darker. They played it in 6/8 time, which gave it that haunting shuffle. And every night, that song stopped the room cold. Producer Mickey Most hated it. He thought it was too long, wrong subject matter, not commercial. The band booked a studio between tour stops, Delane Leah Studios on Kingsway in London, and recorded the song on May 18, 1964. In a single take. The recording cost £34, about $70. Then they listened back. The engineer said, "You're never going to be played on the radio." The song clocked in at 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Standard radio singles ran 2 to 3 minutes. Mickey Most released it full length anyway. The song topped the UK charts and then topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 consecutive weeks in September 1964. It was the first British invasion #1 in America not connected to the Beatles. And then Bob Dylan heard it on his car radio. According to Animals drummer John Steele, Dylan stopped to listen, jumped out of his car, and banged on the hood.
They call the rising lonesome.
Some have argued that hearing what the Animals did with that folk material, plugging it into an electric arrangement, connecting it to a live wire, helped push Dylan toward going electric himself, toward Newport 1965. A chain reaction. A 4-minute 35-second song, too long for radio, recorded in one take for 34 pounds, that broke the Beatles' grip on the charts and may have changed the direction of Bob Dylan's entire career.
Not to do what I...
Sometimes the song that changes everything is the one nobody thought would work. Number 2. A phrase Ringo said without thinking. A chord that baffled music theorists for 40 years until a mathematician cracked it. A song written overnight because a movie needed a title. Number 2. A Hard Day's Night. The Beatles. You know this one. We all know this one. But sit with me for a minute, because where this came from is a story that makes it sound a little different on the other side of it. And the story starts with Ringo Starr being too tired to know what time it was. The phrase "a hard day's night" was coined by an exhausted Ringo Starr after a long day of filming. He emerged from the studio not quite aware of whether it was morning or evening, started to say, "It's been a hard day," and then looked around, realized it was dark, and finished with night. So we came to "A Hard Day's Night." That phrase, born of a Ringo who was too tired to keep track of reality, became the title of a film. And then the film's producer, Walter Shenson, told John Lennon he needed a theme song, a song called "A Hard Day's Night." By the next morning, Lennon dashed the song off overnight.
When I touch you, I feel happy.
The recording took the band less than 3 hours. Take 9 was perfect. "A Hard Day's Night" topped charts in both the United Kingdom and the United States, and the American and British singles, along with both the American and British albums of the same title, held the top position in their respective charts simultaneously in August 1964.
I wanna hold your hand.
The first time any artist had accomplished this feat. But I want to talk about the opening chord. The opening chord of "A Hard Day's Night" has confounded musicians since the first time it came blaring over radio speakers in 1964. One reason most people are baffled is that they believe it is the product of a single guitar, when in actuality it is a whole band blasting away and cohering into one sound.
That's on good. I wanna hold your hand.
The dominant sound is George Harrison's Rickenbacker 12-string, but John Lennon's acoustic guitar, Paul McCartney's bass, Ringo's cymbals, and producer George Martin's piano are all in the mix simultaneously. It took a mathematician at Dalhousie University, running signal analysis, to partially decode what was happening in those few seconds of sound.
I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold.
George Harrison eventually described it as an Fad 9 on the 12-string. It is F with a G on top, he said, but you'll have to ask Paul about the bass note to get the proper story. Even the man who played it could not give the complete answer. I find something genuinely beautiful about that. A chord that cannot be perfectly replicated because it was not really a chord. It was a band, playing as one thing in one moment, creating a sound that no individual instrument could have made alone. This is the one I mentioned, at number 10. At number 8, the one that connects to everything, the razor blade, the cheap amp. We are there. Okay, we are here. I have been thinking about how to tell this one since I started building this list, because there is a before and an after. There are songs from 1964 that are incredible, and then there is the song that made the genre possible. Everything before it was real and true and great, but this is the one I came here to tell you. Number 1, You Really Got Me, the Kinks. The first time I really heard You Really Got Me, not as a song I recognized, but as something I actually listened to, I could not figure out what I was hearing. There is something in that guitar tone that does not sound like a recording. It sounds like the recording is on fire, like the speaker is struggling to contain it. And that is not a metaphor. That is literally what happened. Ray Davies wrote You Really Got Me in early 1964. Originally, it was a slow walking blues, something in the spirit of Leadbelly or Big Bill Broonzy. The Kinks recorded a first version in June 1964, but producer Shel Talmy buried the guitars in reverb, and the result was slower and less emphatic than what Ray had in mind. Ray Davies told the label, Pi Records, they needed to re-record it. The label refused to fund another session on the grounds that the band's first two singles had failed to chart. Ray Davies threatened that he would refuse to perform or promote the single unless it was re-recorded. When Pi stood its ground, the band's own management funded the session themselves. And here is what Dave Davies, the guitar player, Ray's 17-year-old brother, did in preparation for that second session. Dave Davies was deeply depressed. He had been separated from his childhood sweetheart after she became pregnant, and their families forbade them from marrying. He was alone at home with a razor blade. He said it himself, I could easily have slashed my wrists, but I had a little green amplifier, an Elpico, that was sounding crap. I thought, I'll teach it, and slashed the speaker cone. He slashed the speaker cone of his Elpico AC55 amplifier with a razor blade, then ran the mangled amp through a larger Vox AC30 to boost the volume. The distorted guitar tone that would define hard rock and heavy metal and punk was born in a teenager's front room in Muswell Hill, North London in 1964. You just leaned forward. I know, because I did the same thing the first time. I understood what I was reading. When he first heard the result on the radio, in a friend's car, Dave Davies said, I was transfixed. I thought it was someone else. I said, is that us? That's us. Now, the rumor. You have probably heard it. Jimmy Page, then a top-tier session guitarist, was in the room because the label had brought him in, apparently unsure the Kinks could play. But the guitar solo on the record is Dave Davies. Dave has confirmed this every single time anyone has asked. Jimmy Page has not contradicted him, and if you listen to that solo, wild, almost out of control, the sound of a 17-year-old playing like he has nothing to lose, you can hear that it could only belong to the person who slashed an amplifier with a razor blade in a fit of rage. And then there is the sibling dispute that never ended. Ray Davies has claimed, at various points, that he helped create the distortion. Dave went to Facebook in 2014 to dispute this in public. My brother is lying, Dave wrote. I alone created this sound. I am just flabbergasted and shocked at the depth of his selfish desire to take credit for everything. End quote. The Davies brothers are still arguing, in 2026, about who invented heavy metal, which is the most rock and roll sibling argument in history. I love them both for it. You Really Got Me was released on August 4th, 1964. It went straight to number 1 in the UK. Pi Records, who had refused to fund the re-recording, put every other record they had in production on hold in order to solely press copies of this one song. Jimi Hendrix called it landmark. Pete Townshend wrote I Can't Explain as a direct tribute. Dave Davies later said Van Halen's famous cover missed the point of the meaning of the song. Ray Davies said, I was floundering around trying to find an identity. It was in 1964 that I managed to do that, to be able to justify myself and say, I exist, I'm here. I was literally born when that song hit, end quote. If you have ever heard a distorted electric guitar, anywhere, in any song, in any genre, that sound started here, in a kid's front room, with a cheap amp and a razor blade, in 1964, 62 years ago,